this is more than just being like drugged up and doing something gross. This is demonic. This was, my whole room had become its own altar, and it was fueling these spirits. In the beginning, neither one of us were like full-blown addicts, but the addict gene was in us for sure. It just wasn't active, but it became active. This was an evil voice that wanted to keep me in sin, because when I'm in sin, so are a whole bunch of other people, and I'm supplying their problems and habits and selling them stuff and pulling them into things they shouldn't do.
Hello, and welcome back to Deliverance Diaries. So, before we begin today's episode, I want to clearly share a content advisory. So, today's testimony includes discussions around adult content, excessive drug use, and other mature themes. This episode is not going to be suitable for young ears, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. I also want to pause for a moment and thank you to every single person who has subscribed to this channel and chosen to be part of the Deliverance Diaries family. Your support is not taken lightly. And when you watch, you're commenting, you're sharing, and you're praying, you are supporting real people who are bravely sharing their stories of bondage and breakthrough and freedom through Jesus Christ. And I truly appreciate each and every one of you, and the way that you are supporting not just the channel, not just me, but every testimony guest who steps forward to share their story on this platform. And we are also moving close to another milestone. So our next giveaway will be at 3,000 subscribers, and that will be the next time that I will also go live again. So let's hurry up and get to that 3,000. With all that being said, now it is time to get into this week's testimony. And just so you know, this week's testimony will be part 1. There will be a part 2. So you want to make sure that you are hitting the bell and you have subscribed, so you'll be able to get it as soon as it comes out so that you can finish it. And with that said, let's get into today's testimony.
My name is Dustin Wood, and I'm about to tell you guys my testimony of coming from deep darkness. First, let me just say and speak out Revelation 12:11 over this, which says, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death." And when it says they triumphed over him right there, we know that it's talking about the enemy. And so I just speak that over this podcast. And also Ephesians 5:11 is what I kind of based a lot of my ministry around, having nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather to expose them. And I just want to start with a disclaimer. So none of what you're about to hear reflects on my family, my mom, my dad, my brothers. These are amazing people of God. I had a good childhood and had every opportunity to avoid getting into the things that I got myself into. And having said that, I feel truly, truly blessed, so grateful to even be alive. And you're going to see why. So was born in Plainview, Texas, and I was born to a very young mother. And her and my father separated when I was only about a year old. And there was actually a fire that burned down our trailer home. My father at the time was doing some farming and stuff around Plainview. My mother was very young, and they were trying to make it work as best they could and raise a son. But it was shortly after this fire that led to them separating. So I grew up basically having kind of a shared custody situation. And like I said, both of them are amazing people, but the enemy had it out for me from day one. Let me say that, because even this whole fire situation was very bad. I mean, it burned the trailer to the ground. Luckily, my father got me out of there. I was also born with asthma and a very, very dangerously high level allergies, almost like I was allergic to the area I was born in. I mean, it was crazy. And so I can just remember at a very young age, I was already being desensitized to needles because from ages like 5 to probably 10 or 11, I would have to go weekly to get an allergy shot. And so it just became like a regular thing for me. Taking medicine, taking pills became a very normal thing in my childhood. Just I paint that picture so that you see later why some of these things came into play. And so my asthma was so bad as a child that almost probably like the first 5 to 7 years of my life, on my birthday, I would get pneumonia and be in the hospital in like a germ-free bag type situation where loved ones could come in, but they really couldn't touch me and stuff. And, I have spotty memories of that, but it was a real situation. I did grow up knowing and loving Jesus. I went to vacation Bible school as a young man. As I went through my first few years of schooling in Plainview, Texas, I was very sharp. I had straight A's almost my entire life, a very creative mind, but also very talkative. So I would tend to get in trouble sometimes in class for talking. Now, my life in Plainview didn't get to last for a whole long time, because by the time that I was in, I would say, right about fifth grade, we were getting ready to completely relocate. And it's because my mother after her and my father had divorced when I was a year old. A few years later, she married another man that was significantly older, and was just hoping to raise me, kind of with some means. This man had a pretty good financial basis going on in his life. So little did I know, though, he was not good, and he was abusive to her. And so she dealt with that for many, many years. And when they got divorced, she stayed single for a while, and my grandmother was a backbone of my life. She taught me all about praying, and she was very instrumental in my faith as a young man. My mother ended up meeting this another amazing man, a man named, I'll leave names out, but this man was a amazing man of God. And I can just remember right before, I want to say, fourth or fifth grade, he took me and went to a Methodist church, and like literally got me saved. And I didn't even know that these were things that needed to be done. I can just remember being excited about wanting to know more about this thing, the faith, and, loving church. Now, my mother had fell head over heels in love with this man, and it was all going great. We lived on a farm with him, and I was still seeing my biological father every other weekend, and it was just everything seemed great. And only a year into them being together, he also had terrible asthma. And so one day, I can just remember I was at my grandma's, and there was turmoil going on. Come to find out, he went to go cut one of his wheat fields on his own because his hand was busy, and ended up getting such a bad asthma attack that he went code blue and passed away. This really, really hurt my mother, and me too. Everything was shaken in our life. And after that, we both were just, this was probably one of my first like major encounters with death at a young age, and it wasn't the last. So I remember we would stay a lot with my grandmother, and it wasn't long after that she stayed probably single for about a year, and then ended up meeting another man. Now, this is right about the time I'm beginning fifth grade. And so I find out that we are going to completely move, and we're picking up and moving from Plainview to Longview, Texas. And I used to always think how crazy that is, that it went from being plain to Longview, and they were both views. And it ended up actually being kind of prophetic, because I went from knowing very plain amount of things to a very broad, and saw things and was exposed to stuff that I just had never seen before. And it was very intriguing. It went from the flat plains of West Texas to like deep forest area in East Texas. We had 14 acres of untapped land, and it had never been lived on before. I would literally find arrowheads just laying around. I would go build tree houses out in the woods. I mean, it was amazing. And I had a dog that went with me. And so I remember moving to East Texas and just being very excited about this new life. But what's crazy is that as soon as we moved there, we find out that my grandmother had gotten cancer. And so this rocked us, but we just said, you know what, no matter what, we're going to do what we got to do. We will commute, we will drive back and forth, but whatever it takes, we're going to see her. And so I ended up spending all of sixth grade until I graduated high school in the East Texas area, Longview. There's a little lake called Lake Cherokee, and I went to a little school called Tatum, Texas. Now, while I was in Longview is also where things began to escalate for me. I was still keeping up good on my grades. Always did good with grades. I also went to basketball camp sometimes, and this was one of those high schools where, like, if you didn't play football or get into the whole high school and middle school football thing, then it was like a problem. You you couldn't be in the in crowd, to so to say. So I just remember and joining that and having fun. That was probably right about the time I was 13 or 14. Me and a group of friends of mine, we began experimenting with cigars and cigarettes and dip and alcohol, just little amounts. There was actually this little lake store on the lake that these two older women ran, that they did not care, that we could walk in there as kids and buy what we needed. And it needs to be said too that early in my life, I was always very pulled to music, very pulled to music. And I can remember that right before we moved to East Texas, when I was in fourth grade, the first time I ever publicly performed music, it was hip hop. And we tried to do a song by an artist named Domino called Ghetto Jam, me and a couple of my friends. And they basically said, you guys have no, you shouldn't even be listening to this music. So we had to switch it, and we ended up doing a Christian hip hop song. And I say that to say that as I got to East Texas, this love for hip hop music, like it became almost like more than a passion. The Lord has blessed me with a high level memory, and I'm able to see things and deeply memorize them. So I just can remember at a young age memorizing lyrics, and I'm taking in all of this like negative gang culture, like drug selling, dealing life, even as a kid, even before I had ever been exposed to it or knew what it was. I was taking in a high amount of it through the music. I won't say what artists or whatever, but we all know when growing up, I was born in 83. So a lot of those early 90s. And so while I was in East Texas, we've been trying alcohol this now at probably about the time that I'm 16, the year before I turned 16 and I go into my freshman year, my grandmother's cancer had escalated to a point that she ended up passing away. And I can just remember that when went to the funeral, something in me broke that day. I remember just something shifted. I knew that I had friends back home in East Texas that were trying and experimenting with things. It never appealed to me, but that day I can literally remember feeling like I'm about to do something when I get back. Something in me broke when we lost her. And so by the time I was 16, I was still playing football and making good grades, this and that. And I had this whole like really good, like outer image, but inside there was some pain beginning to build. And I can remember, wishing that I was closer to my biological father, because he was all the way up in Plainview. We were 8 hours away in Longview. This new stepfather figure I was around was very negative. He didn't like me, so to say. He did not like anything that I enjoyed or stood for, and we had a lot of static over the years. Was trying to just always make it work. But I can remember that I want to say it was probably my halfway through being 16 that I had a few friends that took them 3 hours to convince me to try marijuana. And I can remember just being so nervous about it. It was more to me about, what about athletics? What about, school? I just felt like there was so much on the line. Like, why do this? And there's drug testing and this and that. And so anyway, I did succumb to peer pressure, and I remember smoking it, and that time, not necessarily really getting very high, but it did spark this whole new curiosity into mind alteration and substances, and like, it definitely opened a door. I know that was the day that I opened a major door. And by 17, I was so I would say desensitized by it, and that all of my older friends that I hung around were all on the regularly smoking, that I was now regularly smoking. I mean, I can remember picking my friends up from school and being one of the only ones who had a truck and would drive, and we would smoke on the way to school. And, I was still keeping everything in balance. But during my 17th year of life is when things started getting crazier and crazier. I began to experiment with mushrooms and pills, namely Xan bars and hydrocodone. This was also a time when the lean was around. A lot of people would drink the hydrocodone lean or the codeine lean, and the music I was listening to was highly fueling it. I was loved everything that DJ Screw was doing and the Screwed Up Click, and I would hear all these songs about the lean and this and that, and it just almost felt like it was justified because of the music that I was listening to. It felt normal to do these things. And so I can just remember that things started getting pretty wild. I was becoming so used to drugs that one wasn't enough and that I could mix multiple things at once. And before I was even 18, I could easily mix 3, 4 different drugs at once, always looking for a chance to dip out and go hang out with the friends and do these things. Me and my friends began trying hallucination drugs. We tried acid, we tried ecstasy. We had a whole period of our lives where we went through this like ecstasy bender in the early late 90 early 2000 era when those things really started popping off. We had a guy in Dallas we would go get them from, and I mean I can remember some of them being like so powerful that it was dangerous. What we were doing was dangerous, but no, without any real like, there was really no authority figures who knew what we were doing. We were keeping it all within our little circle. Me and a group of friends that I had would hang out at a boathouse for hours and hours and hours on the lake, if not days sometimes, taking these ecstasy pills, letting the music fuel us. This is a time in my life actually too where I had finally opened my mind up to other genres like rock and roll. I was getting really deep into different types of rock and roll and more like, I guess, what you may call trippy type music. And before that, I was pretty much just a little hip hop head. I just only listened to rap until these drugs began to take me into different things. And I mean, I can remember some nights on that boathouse where I saw portals open. I remember a night when we do have Cherokee in our family. And I can remember a night where I literally started thinking that I was having like a past life memory, or I was tapping into the Cherokee side. And now this is all some stuff that I would highly rebuke and say is nonsense and was definitely of the enemy. But at that time, I was very engulfed in it. It seemed like nothing else mattered, especially when you're balancing your school grades and everything on the outside still looks really good. This is also around the time that I picked up a strange fascination for gang culture. And so none of my other friends were into this stuff really, not like I was. Like I said, this music, the hip hop music had really pulled me into a place where I wanted to know and experience every single thing that they're talking about. And I would also see on these music videos and what you may see from the streets that these guys seem to be like the toughest of the tough. No one messes with them, and that I could probably say this has something to do with the fact that I wasn't near my biological father enough. So subconsciously, I'm starting to look to other, what some may call an alpha male, or how they may carry themselves, because the stepfather that I had, that I'm around all the time, was not putting out a positive image to me. He was not trying to mentor me or teach me in any way really about being a man, quote unquote. So I mean, that's what I did. I focused on these guys, and I had a couple friends who were really, really in gangs. And during my 17th year, so something kind of wild happened. The more I got into this, I was working as a part-time at a hardware store, and the group of friends of me that were always trying drugs, I remember, I think we had all went to prom, and one night after prom, we were all standing around our tuxes, and somebody said, like, because we all hung out at Lake Cherokee, somebody said like, oh, we look like the Cherokee Mafia. And so that night, that kind of burst something, and so we started calling ourselves the Cherokee Mafia. And so since I worked at this hardware store, I had us these little blue keys made, and we would wear them on these little necklaces that all was made from the hardware store. And actually, we thought it was just something kind of cool for us to know about, nobody else. But it snowballed into something I didn't see coming at high school. They ended up doing a write-up about it in the high school paper because an opposing group of guys came to my store and bought the red keys of it. And they called themselves the 55K, which is like the police code for drunk driving. And so from the outside looking in, this was a very small East Texas town with a population of like 1,500. There was only 82 in my graduating class. So you can imagine there was parents raising they were like, what is this? Bloods and Crips? Like, what is going on with our kids? And I happened to be at the center of it. Even though most of the guys around me were older and I was the younger one, I was at the center of it. I would leave from my job and go hang out at the screw tape shop on the south side of Longview. And I would go really hang out with the guys who were really doing this, the real Crips and stuff, and see like how everything goes. And they would just kind of, kick it around me. I tell people that, the devil is a counterfeit. Okay. So let me say this, that when your life is marked by something, the devil will counterfeit it until you understand your identity. and my life was marked by God's favor. But since I wasn't accessing it or knew who it was, the devil gave me demonic favor because I was just able to somehow get into rooms and places that I should not have been allowed to be, not just from the color of my skin, but because I wasn't even actually a part of that thing at all. And so this happened multiple times in my life, most of my life, until I got out of it. I just had this strange favor that would follow me, and it didn't feel demonic. But when I look back on it now, it's demonic favor because these things were negative and they were wrong. And so, I was very, very entrenched with this culture, so much so that it began to take shape in my mind as a part of my identity. And me and the guys, we're doing more and more drugs than ever. Things are getting faster and faster, and but still, none of the parents actually know what's going on. There were some rumors about us, but no one really knew. Now, I believe that it was 17 was the first time that I ever got pulled over on a suspected drug activity type thing. I was at a trap house in Longview, Texas, buying some sweets. They used to sell 5 for 10 sweets. It was marijuana rolled up in cigars, and a cop saw me there. He knew I didn't belong. He pulled in behind me and blocked me in, and I had one in the glove box. He searched my car. There were some roaches in my ashtray. He searched my car. He just happened somehow. I literally watched him somehow just not see it. And so to me, that's some of that favor right there. He just missed it and kind of just gave me a little scarce talk and was like, knock it off, and that I needed to go home and to, not come back to this area again. So I just can remember that experience actually not really scaring me or bothering me at all. I kind of just saw it as, this is part of this. It's going to happen. Nothing to be worried about. Right. And so by my senior year, I had picked up a full blown opiate addiction. I mean, it was full blown, from Vicodin, hydrocodone syrup. I even stole them from family and friends, medicine cabinets. I even once pretended to be the person who had stole my ex-girlfriend's grandma's purse, which I knew about. And because I had a key to their house, I was able to fake and do a phone call so that I knew I could watch them leave and get into the house to steal the pills. So it was becoming a big deal. And I was becoming a thief and a habitual liar. I was picking up behaviors that were really taking me to some very dark places. I also began selling weed that year. My senior year, I was selling it, going to my friends after work, and they were fronting me stuff, and I would take it and sell it at school. But I was also, that senior year, I was also taking college courses. So I was in what they call like a dual credit program, where I was doing my first semester of college while I'm still in high school. And so this was actually just a really good front for no one to even be able to see or know what I was really actually doing. I guess I kind of got some type of a rush from being able to get away with these things and be under the radar, but really just be living so fast, very, very fast. And my drug habits were, at this point, not habits. They were full on addictions. I was just so good at this double life that no one could see it. There was a time when I was in Spanish class. I can remember this is one of the points where I was like, okay, this might be becoming a problem. I didn't even know that opiates could cause withdrawal. And basically, this day, I didn't happen to have what I would normally have that I would take each morning, but I had some backups of something else that wasn't an opiate. It was a soma. It was a high-level muscle relaxer. And so I started feeling really icky. I did not feel good. I didn't know what was going on. It was actually full-blown withdrawal. And so I remember I'd take a couple of these, and I mean, it hit me so hard that I wake up on the floor from Spanish class like 2 hours later. And this is how much of that demonic favor is on my life. The teacher's like, "Oh, Dustin, are you okay? We just figured that you're so tired from taking college courses that you needed a nap. So we just let you sleep." I said, "What happened?" She's like, "You fell out of the desk asleep, but we just let you sleep." I mean, it doesn't make any sense for these things to even be allowed to happen. So that's what I mean when I say that there was a demonic favor on my life to keep doing bad and keep drawing others in with me to do this with me. Several other friends I knew were taking the same pills as me. We were selling them. So I was getting away with some really wild stuff. And most times after school, I went to my job, then I went to the hardware store which even at the hardware store, I was beginning to delete transactions and pocket some little extra money here and there. And then I would either, go to the music shop in the hood or a friend's house in the hood to do hood stuff, or one of my dealer's house to do drugs, and just watch and observe like everything that they're encountering. And basically just I was just trying to become a sponge for all that I could about that world. I wanted to know it all, and I wanted to make sure I was equipped to moving forward. I honestly, in my mind, I don't think I really had a plan, but I just knew that I needed to know it all. That's how I am about things. And I take the same thing into my faith now, that I want to know as much as I possibly can to be the best at it. And so I mean, I did this definitely in sin and addiction too. So my senior year, I was even, there was a point when things started trying to kind of getting a little bit hot. So I was called into the principal's office about selling ecstasy. And it was because one of our freshmen had ended up getting one of my pills, and it was so strong that it scared her to the point where while she was high, she told her mother where she got it from, what she was on, and what all she had heard about me and my friends. Um, they still had no proof, but it did get me pulled into the office, and they talked to me, and I just remember like laughing at them, blowing it off, and keep throwing it in their face that I'm also in college. What are you talking about? It's like, hey, you know what? Get my mom on the phone. Let her tell you. And my mom, being the sweetheart that she was, she had no clue. I was not, from the outside, you could not tell. And so she took my back and argued it with me, and once again the favor came on me, and that just kind of got squashed. So yeah, it was a whole thing. So mostly I think back on high school, and I mean, it almost was just a blur of a lot of drugs. I'm amazed that I even was able to keep up the straight A's and some B's. I had some B's here and there, but me and my buddies in the Cherokee Mafia, we would always be at the boathouse all weekend long doing drugs. Maybe the worst thing we ever did other than drugs was sometimes we would get a wild hair and go spray paint the roads and tag it with our names or whatever. But me, myself, I was doing a lot worse things that I sometimes wouldn't even tell my little group of drug buddies about. I always had like another secret inner world that even if you were in one of my inner circles, you probably weren't in the inner circle, because sometimes there was stuff that it was just only I knew about it, something I couldn't trust others with. I had also tampered with a couple of scripts for syrup. I had a doctor in Tatum that I would go see and tell, I knew exactly what to say to get him to write out the cough syrup that I wanted. And almost got caught one time for checking off more refills than I should have. But in this little town, they just always want to just warn you, warn you, warn you. No trouble happened. But this senior year is when my opiate thing really escalated, because I tried a new level of it that I had never tried before. Now, this is when Oxycontin is beginning to become a very big thing in the world. And it's spreading rapidly. And so we're hearing about it, and we're hearing that it's like Vicodin times 20 and this and that. And so I can just remember that when I tried that, it was like a whole new thing kicked off. A whole new sensor in my head was broken, and it just seemed like that was all that was important. And then I find out that it's actually pretty much what they call hillbilly heroin. So heroin is interchangeable with it, in which I never ran across that in East Texas. I didn't know where you could even find that. And so my senior year, I'm trying to plan for college. I don't know yet where, and I actually haven't even filled out any applications. There's no one behind me saying like, hey, you should be filling out applications or anything. And I'm just kind of winging it day by day. I took my first trip to Austin, and it was so it was April 20th, and they have a major festival down there during that time. I had never seen or experienced anything like this in my life. It was hard for me to believe what was going on, because I remember coming from all these little small Texas towns, and then going there, and there being this open festival of everyone just smoking weed in front of cops, and it's okay. And there's concerts on every corner. And I mean, I remember like falling in love, being like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm going to move to. And this is where I'll live my life. Wasn't really even thinking, of course, I always wanted to go to UT as a school, but I was in no shape financially, or even actually just grade wise. Even though I made good grades, it takes a lot to get in there with some type of a scholarship. So I just remember going down there, and that 420 trip was also the first time that I actually tried real heroin. And so a friend of mine had gotten some, and it was a tar substance that we it was in a needle, but none of us wanted to touch a needle. So he said, hey, it's okay. We'll just break the tip off and you can sniff it. And so we did that. Now, let me say that opiates have a strange effect on artists and people with artistic minds. It's almost like you can fall in love in a way. It becomes an actual relationship. It almost feels like a tangible relationship. And I mean, we've seen this over the years with people like Kurt Cobain and all these different guys. Like, I could relate. I would look into finding out like which musicians did what I was doing, and I would get engulfed in their music and think that I was hearing these messages underneath it that no one's catching, because I'm in tune with what they're in tune with, doing the same drugs as they were. So I was very much headed in a dark path with the heroin. I still had not shot up at this point yet. And so I moved to Austin right after graduation with a distinguished diploma, and I had every intention of going to ACC, Austin Community College, and joining UT under academic probation. Like, that was the plan. That's what I'm telling my family that I'm gonna do, but I was so involved with drugs, the streets, partying, and now the worries and concerns of like big city life with no family or accountability anywhere close at all. And I'm living with a girlfriend who enables me. She never would say no. And she kind of came from a little bit of a broken background and had her own things going on, but was right next to me as a passenger. Just whatever I wanted to do, she was okay with it. And so she definitely enabled me, and I enabled her. I get deeper and deeper into the opiates, but at this time we moved to Austin. We don't have like people. We don't know where to go, what to do. And so we used to actually drive back all the time. We would drive back 4.5 hours each way, so 8-hour drive in one day just to go get some pills. And to try to show you how bad my addiction had gotten, one of my pill dealers was a very older gentleman who was very, very much sick and ill, needed these things, but he was selling them, and he had a voice box, and he was actually kind of somewhat blind. And so I can just remember that it had gotten so bad that me and my friends were realizing that sometimes if we were doing bad on money, we could show up, hand him money, and say it was $100 bill, and he could not see good enough to tell if it was just a 20 or maybe a $1 bill. And so I can remember so many times doing this and getting away with it and driving back to Austin. We did that a lot. We drove back and forth, back and forth. And so after a while, I kind of had enough of this. I knew what Oxycontin and heroin were really like, and these Vicodin were wasting my time. They weren't just doing it for me anymore. I remember that I was like, okay, I'm going to find heroin, whatever I got to do. I remember being 18 years old and asking someone in Austin, where's the hottest street in this city? Like, where's the most dangerous street where all there's like open air transactions going on, everything? And they give me a street name. I just remember just walking down there and boldly telling people what it is that I was looking for and what I wanted. Of course, most of these people are just looking at me like, get out of here. What are you talking about? But I did end up finding someone who had the little balloons and what I was looking for. So I found the heroin plug, and fell deeply, deeply, dangerously in love with this drug, and pretty much lost my soul for a while and drive for anything else in life. I started out snorting it, but then one day, someone talks you into it and says, hey, you're wasting that, man. Let me show you. So I didn't know how to do it. I did not know how to shoot up. I didn't know what to do. And he basically just said, just reach over and stick your arm out and I'll do it for you. And so I can remember letting them do that for me and just realizing like, okay, yeah, they were right. I've been wasting my time. And this is when I pick up needles and start shooting. My addiction gets so bad so fast that I basically stop eating. I'm not really eating anymore. If I am, it's like fast food or ice cream or candy. You always have like, you get these cravings for nothing but junk on that stuff. And so the only way we were being able to even afford to do all this and live in Austin was that the girl I was with at the time, she had already in East Texas been stripping under a fake ID. And so she was actually okay with it. And I didn't ask her to do this or nothing, but she said like, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go strip for us. We're going to keep partying for a while and then we'll get you in college. So there was always like this lie that we would tell ourselves that this is a phase. Eventually I'll be in college and I'll take care of both of us, but you're just going to do this for now. And so that's what she would do. She would go strip. There was many, many nights that I was allowed into the club, and I would just sit there, and I was her brother, and be able to watch and make sure she's safe and everything. And sometimes even be in there selling stuff on my own. I can remember that there was now come time for like Christmas or something. Me and her would either make up excuses that we can't make it this year. But I can remember there was a year when we did go, and we did go to my family's for Christmas, back to the Panhandle, and it was a complete disaster. First of all, we were out of H and couldn't find any, and then while they end up finding some of our needles, so we get sick and we're withdrawing really bad. This is at a point where now when if I don't have it so many hours, I'm going into very violent withdrawals, throwing up, sick, and can't even function at all. And so now I'm in this state and condition in front of my family at Christmas. So I can just remember we just kind of rode to the hood, and it's like find whatever drugs we can find. End up finding some pills in the cabinet and some meth off the streets, which I never liked meth, but I've done pretty much every drug there is, and went down major holes with each one of them. And so that was a terrible trip. And my family is now understanding that there's major problems going on. Um, this is probably also the same time that after I get back from Christmas that year, I'm in Austin. I had only been in Austin for maybe a year and my father had helped me out and got me a truck and fixed it up. It was actually one of his older Chevys, but we fixed it up and put 20-inch rims on it. And it was kind of like my gift for graduating high school with college credit. And I was excited to have it down there, but only a year in being down there, and it got stolen for the first time. And so I actually ended up getting it back like 20 minutes after the first time it was stole. And then we had to take it to the shop. 3 months later, it was stolen the second time, and I never saw it again. So there was a point when I had to spend the insurance money. And so my dad needed to fly me up to the Panhandle and spend the insurance money. And this was another time when I kind of crashed out. I didn't know what I was thinking, but I knew I needed to try to have some kind of way of taking opiates with me on the trip. And so my idea is that I'm going to smuggle some oxys through the airport, and it'll be fine and okay. And it totally backfires on me. It goes really wrong. I'm not able to hide them the way I want. And at the last minute at the airport, I freak out and just wad them up in about 20 of them, 20 Oxycontin 40s. And so that's a lot. And just wad them up into this little cigarette cellophane and swallowed the whole thing. And it needs to be said that I was a very bad cigarette addict. I smoked cigarettes for over 30 years, probably almost. And so my idea was that I'm going to get through the air security checkpoint and I'm going to throw it back up and it'll be okay. But what happens is when I get through the security checkpoint, I'm trying to throw up this cellophane and it just keeps getting caught in my throat and won't come out. And so now I remember getting on the plane and just like basically just kind of agreeing like with like, okay, well, this is it. I'm probably about to die on this plane, because I knew how much of what was in my system. And normally anybody that would have taken that much would have dropped dead. So I actually ordered a Bacardi on the plane, and I'm just going to drink and we'll see what happens. But I guess because of them being in the cellophane, they slowly evaporated slower than they normally would have. And what happens is that I just get crazy, ridiculously high and sloppy. I can barely walk. I get off the plane. My dad is just like, "Oh my goodness, what is wrong with you?" And he wasn't dumb. He knew something was really up, and he kind of gave me the benefit of the doubt. I just said, "Oh, I'm drunk." But on this trip of being there to use the insurance money to get a new vehicle, the same thing happens. I get horribly sick. Horribly sick. He can see that I'm emaciated and I'm pale and skinny, and I've got holes all in my arms, and I'm trying to wear long sleeves. And he reached out to me and wanted to help me. And even in that moment, this is such an addict thing that I remember lying when being confronted and saying, "Oh no, it's not heroin. I'm just doing a little bit of coke here and there. So it's not a physical addiction. Don't worry about me. I'm fine." And basically I end up getting this other truck and winging it through this horrible trip of putting my family through another terrible time of seeing me in really bad shape, and rushing to get back to Austin to fall back into the same things of what I'm doing. And so I was notorious for this over the years of coming around the family just out of it, and they were putting up with it just to see me. I was also using my girl and me to scam doctors in Austin. We would find out ways where we could say certain things to get it, just like I did in high school. And then there was even a time that I actually stole an entire script pad and was writing out stuff and getting it and using, I mean, doctors' instruction codes and everything. I had studied it all to the T until one day when something really bad almost happened. I ended up grabbing the script back from them when I could see that they were hesitant about it. And I didn't do that anymore because that would be a federal offense. It was a major deal. And so, yeah. So this girl I was with, I had a pretty wild, let me back up on one thing. So the first time I ever had a supernatural experience in my life, I'm just going to back up real quick, was when my mother was with the stepdad I had, who was an amazing Christian man. There was a time when we had to rush one time because his daughter was at a ski trip for the church. And so she was staying at Wolf Creek Lodge, and she had so bad asthma that she was dangerously having it. So we just took off and drove. And as we were crossing up to the top of the mountain, it was a whiteout. It was like a blizzard. Our car started spinning and we could see it heading toward a cliff. And so, he had always taught us that if you're ever in danger like that, to just say, Jesus, help me, Jesus, help me, Jesus, help me. And if you're not meant to die, you won't. Well, he does that. And lo and behold, somehow a snow embankment shows up out of nowhere and grabs the back of our car, and we're safe. And we get out and, someone pulls right up with chains to help us. And so that was the first time I ever had a supernatural experience. The second time was this girl that I was living with in Austin. She was what I would say now is a seer. She was a seer. But at that time, I didn't have that kind of language as a young man. And all I knew was that she was a medium or a psychic or something. But I knew that she had abilities because she would, wake up many nights and be seeing things in our apartments. And she was beginning, because of what we were doing, she was beginning to see demonic presences hanging around us. And so there was a night when she saved my life. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. We were going around the corner from our apartment to another friend of mine's to go drop off a bunch of drugs. And when we got there, he wasn't home. And so we see this car pull up with loudspeakers playing. We don't know these people, but they will not stop trying to talk to me. Like, they want me to come over to their car so bad and see whatever they've got. And I just keep saying, like, no, man, leave me alone, leave me alone. And she's screaming my name from the car over and over and over. And I'm kind of just looking at her, scolding her, like, no, stop it, knock it off. Everything's fine. And I just remember there was at some point when she said my name, it sounded like my grandmother's voice saying it. And it stopped me in my tracks. And I walked and got back in the truck and drove off. And I asked her, what just happened? And she said, do you want to really know? I said, yes. She said, well, I had a vision and I saw what these people were about to do, and they were going to blow your head off. And they were going to jump in the car and steal the car and take me and rape me all night. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I mean, I could feel the weight of what just almost happened. Like it was just one of those moments where you knew something very, very bad just almost happened, because he kept wanting me to bend over this truck and look at something. And it was a very strange situation. So I can remember that night beginning to trust her more and realize that she was tapped into something that I wasn't. And so whatever it was, being in the life that I was in, I was like, well, perfect girl. I got the perfect girl, because if something dangerous is going on, she'll be able to see it. And so that's how crazy it is to see these things and not even stop. It didn't slow me down at all. And so time goes on, me and her keep going really hard in our heroin addiction, and we actually get evicted from our apartment. And we luckily start living at like a high-end rich hotel, because what she would do was she could call some of her customers from the strip club and say, hey, me and my brother just got evicted and we don't have anywhere to stay. And they would say, oh, no problem, we'll put you up in this hotel for. So I remember he put us up in that hotel for many, many months. And we would just run up the bills with ice cream and all types of nonsense, still just living our life, doing lots of heroin, mainly on the heroin. We were mixing heroin and benzos like Zans and Valiums and these types of things, because the combination of those two drugs is very powerful. It's like a very sedative effect that happens. And that's typically what I would always try to get to, is that point of nodding out, falling asleep, and forgetting everything that's actually happening in my life. And so after we stay there for a while, we end up subletting an apartment from another drug dealer that's in the drug dealer's name. And this is where I catch my first felony. And I used to call it the piece of glass that saved my behind, but you know what word I used to say. And so what happened was there was a night where we were doing our normal thing and, just doing lots of drugs. She had been at the club. And I guess I got wild that night and broke one of our windows because I woke up the next morning and I was going in there to do my normal thing. I had a bunch of little balloons of heroin laying on the bathroom cabinet. And I went and I did one and didn't realize that when I stepped down, I stepped on this big piece of glass about this big and it sliced my big toe wide open. I mean, wide open, like it was gushing blood. Now I don't feel the pain because I'm on heroin and benzos but so she's asleep. She's still asleep, hasn't woke up. Would try to let her sleep as long as possible because she would have to get up and go to work at night. And so I remember hopping all around that apartment and I was just pouring blood was pouring out of my toe. And so what happens is she wakes up and sees all this and freaks out. Like she thinks like it's way worse than it actually is. I'm trying to calm her down. And she just loses touch with that this is not our apartment and we are subletting it. And without thinking, and while she's still technically sick, because when you do heroin, you have to wake up and immediately use, or if not, within 15 to 20 minutes of you waking up, you're going to be in withdrawal. And so she's worried about me though. So she goes running down to the complex manager and tells them, I don't know what all she told them because I didn't go, but I know she told me, like, don't worry, the ambulance is on the way. And I'm very upset about it. So I'm like, no, why would you do that? I'm not going. I got people on the way over. So I actually had someone on his way over to me. And so what's crazy is that I remember there being a knock at the door, in which to me, I just thought, oh, that's the type of knock. It's my guy. And I remember, never forget what I see when I looked. I opened the door and I saw 7 different Austin PD cars slanted all different ways, and they are rushing towards me into the door. Like they basically, like it almost like they had been watching us or something. They knew it was more than just a toe being cut. And so I tried to slam the door in their face and I was running toward the bathroom to grab those balloons of heroin. And I got slammed to the ground, gun to the back of my head. They grab her and this is how I begin to get my first felony. But now they can also see that my toe is for really actually in really bad shape. I lost a lot of blood, so I had to be treated for that. Now I get arrested for heroin, possession of controlled substance, like less than, I think it was no more than a gram or no less than 2 grams, no more than something. Like it wasn't a whole lot, but it was still a felony. And at this time, I'm only 21 years old. And so I don't know anything yet about the judicial system. All I know is that a felony is terrible and your life's over after you get a felony, right? That's what everyone always thinks. And so I actually get stuck in county waiting to get a court date and stuff for almost a month and a half. And I didn't know it. But later I find out she bonded out. She ended up calling another one of her customers. She bonds out. And this is kind of where me and her split ways now. She bonds out, goes right back to the same way of living. So I actually have to cold turkey sober up in jail. And I remember I'm starting to finally like come back to my mind a little bit, man, because I was like way out of there and just realizing like how bad life had gotten. And now I was offered a program called drug court, and it's like a year-long drug diversion court where basically it's like a type of probation that can get your felony dismissed. And so I tell them, yes, I'll do it. I'll do whatever. And this is where I first get introduced into the halfway house and AA and NA system. And I'll go into more depth here in a minute about AA and NA because I have a new way of seeing this now that I'm in the kingdom. But at this time, it was helping me somewhat. It was something to help me. I didn't even know how to talk about a drug problem. And I would go to these meetings and you would begin to talk to people and hear that people were sometimes just as bad as you. And so I go through this program, and after about a year and a half, I get the first felony dismissed. And now, not only like 5 months later, I think I left Austin for maybe a month and a half or so, and I go back around my family and go see them. And then something would always pull me back to Austin, like right about the time that the Lord's trying to pull me out of this place that I should have never been in the first place. I would feel so drawn to it that I could not be happy unless I was there. And so I talk everyone in that I'm going back to Austin. I'm going to do it right this time. And I'm going to go back to college. And so I get that stuff set up. And not only 5 months after me being back down there with a new job and I'm enrolled back into a form of college. I get a whole new felony, and this is when I really saw the level of demonic favor that was on my life. Now, this is crazy, and all of this stuff is documented and can be looked up, court records, but this really happened. Okay, so it was the day before my 24th birthday, and I was up to no good for sure. At this time, it wasn't heroin. It was Oxycontin 80s, which is hillbilly heroin, was just as bad. And I had just taken like 90 of them to a friend of mine, and I had a bunch of personals on me and needles to shoot them with and benzos. And I'm just having a crazy good old time. And I've got these major plans for this next day of my birthday. Now, once again, I'm back acting how I did in high school. It feels justified because it feels like, well, I got off probation and I'm back in college, so I can do a little something. And so after I drop off these pills to this girl, I'm in a part of Austin that I'm not normally in, and I didn't know I crossed into a different county. And so there's a county that borders on Travis that is a zero tolerance county called Williamson County. They are zero tolerance, to where Travis County has shirts that say keep Austin weird. They have ones that say keep Georgetown normal. They do not play. But I get pulled over for no reason. I was not doing anything wrong at all. And he kind of profiled me. My hat's backwards. My music is loud. I'm smoking a Black and Mild cigar, just looking crazy and thinking that I can do whatever I want, right? And basically, he tells me like, "Hey, listen." I said, "What did I do wrong, sir?" I pop off to him right off the bat. He claims that I'm speeding in a school zone. Now it's 5:30, almost 6 at night. So I start debating this and arguing with him. And now he tells me that he's going to detain me because he can smell marijuana. And I get really aggravated about this because I had not been smoking. And I feel like he's just lying on me. And I had no place to, but I kind of yell and snap at him and stuff. So, and lo and behold, he detains me, meaning he cuffs me, puts me in the back of his car and says, "I'm going to search this truck. And then if everything's okay, you'll get to leave." Okay, so I remember being in the back of this cop car and having the wildest experience with hearing a voice. And so, because I begin to freak out, like, I mean, it's almost like I can feel tons of pressure hitting me, like, oh, I'm catching a whole new major felony. I'm going back. This time I'm going to prison. It's gonna be horrible. I'm gonna miss my birthday the next day. I was so goofy. And when I was a kid, man, I had my birthdays built up to be this huge, horrible thing they shouldn't have been. And so when I'm in the back of this car, like, I'm banging my head against the thing, and the cop cannot see me doing all this, but I hear a voice say, "Just be quiet." And it's almost like when it spoke to me that I knew in my spirit it meant to play dead. And so I just fall over, and I control my breathing so well that when this cop comes back, he wants to ask me, like, "What are these pills? They are in a bottle that has your name on it. Which ones are these?" He's wanting to ask me questions and this and that. And I'm what they call unresponsive. And so I remember hearing him get on the thing and say, "Hey, I got one that's unresponsive." And plus he finds needles, so he's worried that I'm overdosing. And I play this all the way to the point where I remember peeking my eye open, and I'm in the back of an ambulance, and I'm not cuffed to the bed, and there's no cop following us. And so I never got told there was a charge or anything. And so they're trying to stick me full of IVs and say, like, "Sir, you just overdosed." I'm like, "No, I didn't. I promise I did." "Yes, you did." "Well, where are we going?" "Well, we're going to the hospital, sir." And I'm like, "Yeah, but do I have to go in?" And they're just kind of looking at each other like, "What is it?" It's like, "Well, sir, we need to urge you to go into the hospital. You need to be seen." And I was like, "Okay, I see what they mean now." So as soon as we pulled into the hospital, of course, when they opened the back doors, I was gone. I just jumped out the back, took off running, and in less than 2 hours, I had my truck out of the impound, was back in my truck, laughing my head off, doing more drugs, thinking like, this is crazy. Like, I literally just totally tricked the cops. Nothing's gonna happen. I'm good. Now I get to enjoy my birthday. And so this is why I call it demonic favor, because this was not the voice of God stepping in to help me. This was an evil voice that wanted to keep me in sin, because when I'm in sin, so are a whole bunch of other people, and I'm supplying their problems and habits and selling them stuff and pulling them into things they shouldn't do. And so that's definitely what's happening. I was being licked. So What's crazy is this later comes back to bite me. 2 months later, I'm working at my job site. I was at this time I'm doing landscaping and I'm working for a man, and we were at a job site in Westlake. It's a very, very nice, rich part of Austin. And I don't know it, but I hear this from him later on. He gets a call from the cops and they say, listen, we know that the fugitive known as Dustin Wood works for you, and we have 40 units in the area surrounding, and we're about to swarm your job site. And so he basically tells them, well, if you storm my job site, then I'll never work here again and I'll sue you. And they, well, you need to cooperate. And he says, okay, what do I do? And they said, well, you need to take him to the local gas station. And so he basically, all I know is that he comes and tells me, he's like, hey, Dustin, you want to go get a Gatorade? Now I'm on Oxycontin. I've still been shooting Oxycontin every day. And I'm like, sure. I remember we get to the gas station and it still hasn't hit me. None of this has hit me. And I remember pulling in and seeing that there were literally unmarked Dodge Chargers everywhere in this nice Westlake gas station. And I'm just like, man, something is going on. What is it? What is it? And we pulled up, and then I look up and hear like three of them pulling behind us. And these are marshals. And so there are marshals getting out, approaching with their guns drawn and stuff. And so they're there to serve the warrant. The guy in the front's like, I'm not Dustin, he is. And so I'm nervous at this point, telling them, like, guys, don't shoot. It was just drugs. I'm not a fugitive, though, because a fugitive breaks out of custody. I was actually not in custody because I didn't have a charge. So there were some legalities that were done wrong. And so they were actually nice guys. They were like, listen, we're going to do our job. You could do yours. So they put me in the car, and I'm asking, what are my charges? And they said, well, you actually have 3 felony fugitive warrants for your arrest. And I'm like, 3? And so they name off 3 different drugs that were found that day that I was that the day I heard the voice and got out of that charge originally. But when I get to the jail and get what they call magistrated, meaning that they see that they have me in custody and they're going to decide which ones to move forward with, all of the whole fugitive thing drops completely and gets erased from the record, and all they keep is the Oxycontin charge. And so that one was a felony. And this ends up leading to me going to prison. But how it happened was I actually first got put on probation. So I got put on, I had to go to a type of rehab. So this would have been my second or third time of rehab. I meant to say that earlier. So there was a time when they first put me on the drug court program, I had to go to an inpatient rehab to begin it. Same thing for this. When the court system starts you onto a probation, they usually want you to begin with an inpatient program. So they began me at an inpatient lockup facility, and it was like 5 months long. And so I remember that when I got out, I had a whole bunch of new friends that did all their different types of drugs. And so those places can be very dangerous, just like prison. It can almost become like a crime or drug school, because you find out who all in there does what, and now y'all are going to swap out, and we're going to do this, and everybody starts making plans. And so I had only been out of rehab for maybe like 3 months, out of sober home, trying to get this is not deferred, this is real felony probation. So anything goes wrong and I'm in big trouble and going to prison. And I still just didn't take it serious enough. And I remember I was 15 minutes late to a meeting one time, and then she UA'd me and I popped dirty for marijuana. And so I basically get told, like, hey, you need to make arrangements, because the next time we see you, you're going to prison. We're revoking they were very, very, very strict in that county. This is that other county outside of Austin, or some parts of Austin are in it too. But anyway, so I could not come into agreement with the idea of prison yet. I'm like, okay, so what you're telling me is that I need to get ready, meaning that you're gonna let me leave today. So that was probably the worst thing they did, was let me leave that day, because when they let me leave, I said, okay, well, I'm going on the run. And I went on the run. I actually went and hid in the middle of Westlake, in the rich part of Austin, with another friend of mine who was also on probation. And his parents just didn't really care what he did. And he would have, tons of people living and spending the night at his house. And so it was like a party there 24/7. If you can imagine the biggest, nicest, like luxury lake home with a pool in the back, and it's on the water and have boats and jet skis. They had all of that going on. And so was living there with him, hiding out, and then at this time I also go back into heroin. I had been doing oxy again and popping Vicodin, but now I go deeply back into heroin because I'm trying to run from the idea of prison. I was scared. I was still only 24, and I was not ready. I didn't want that at all. So this is actually where I end up getting felony number 2 and, well, felony number 3 in a major way. So there was a day when I used to go do like moving jobs. And so I would say, okay, Brandon, I'm going to go do a moving job in San Antonio. We'll be back tonight. And then I'll just have them drop me off straight here. Well, it just so happened he was having this huge pool party that day. And so, okay, well, when I go to do this moving job, I'm actually very sick because I don't have any of my drugs. And so I'm so sick that I'm worthless the whole time and can't work. But my buddy still managed to pay me. And so as soon as we drive back from San Antonio, we're crossing into Austin. I had a friend that had let me my apartment that I used to live in. Well, I wasn't staying there anymore because I knew since I was on the run from prison, they were probably going in there every once in a while. But I would stop by here and there to grab stuff, and plus my neighbor sold stuff. So I stopped by and I grabbed some heroin from him. And now I'm getting dropped back off in Westlake. So when I get dropped off at Brandon's house, I was just never content, man. Even if I got the drug I wanted, it was like I had to have more of something else. And my problem wasn't just drugs. It was like there was a hole in me, this huge void in me that I wanted more, more, more. Because I remember I did like a whole 50 of H, and I was just like, this isn't even good enough. This isn't good. So I want some Xanax now too. And so I talked my friend that had the pool party and the rich family into letting me drive his Mustang by myself to go get some Xan bars at like midnight in Austin. So I remember this is where I get another felony. So I left in his house, and I remember I went and picked them up, and I picked up 12 of them. And the last conscious memory I have before seeing the cops again is I remember counting them and going, okay, how many can I eat before I get to his house so it won't hit me in a dangerous way? And I'm like, well, I can eat 4 of them, 4 whole handlebars. So I take them, and the drive it should have only been a 15-minute drive to get from where I was at in Austin back to his in Westlake. And so actually what ends up happening is when I come to, I open my eyes and I just see cop lights flashing everywhere. I don't know where I'm at. I'm trying to look around at like the road signs or where am I? These cops approach the window. They're like, "Sir, do you know where you're at?" And so off the top of my head, my last conscious memory is off of a certain highway, 183. And I'm like, "Yes, sir, I'm off highway 183." And they just start giggling at each other. And they're like, "Well, yeah, well, where are you headed?" I said, "Oh, just, back to where I live in Westlake." They laugh again. And he's like, "Sir, do you know that you're driving on 4 flat tires? And do you know that you've been throwing sparks out of the rims for miles now? And do you know that we got a call that there was a dangerous driver on the road? And do you know that you are almost in San Marcos, Texas, and you're in Hayes County right now?" And I was in crazy shock. I was like, it almost seemed impossible to me. I felt like they were lying, and I still have more pills and heroin on me. And so I'm nervous, very nervous, but I'm trying to play it cool because I have woke up now with adrenaline surging through me after hearing all this. And so I know now I'm going to jail no matter what. And so when the cop walked off for a minute, because at first when he asked me my name, I lied and gave him a different name. So when he walks off with that, I opened this little Jack in the Box cup that was right there and stuffed the drugs and shut the lid on it and just leaned back. And he came back and said, "Okay, there's one charge. So how many more charges do you want tonight? Because that's not your name. So that's a class A misdemeanor." So I basically tell him I was seeking sympathy. I'm like, "Sir, listen, man, listen. I got a blue warrant out of Williamson County, and if I go to jail tonight, they're gonna make me go to prison. So just let me get away with it. I don't want to go to prison. Surely you don't want me to go to prison." And lo and behold, they look it up. They see like, oh, he absolutely has a hold to be going to prison, and he's on the run right now from a felony probation case. So I get thrown in Hayes County Jail, which is in San Marcos. This is like 30 minutes outside of Austin. I had no business even being anywhere close to where I was at and shouldn't have been. My poor friend's car is ruined. I mean, ruined. They said that I rode it on the rims so much that the rims were unusable. They were like, and he had very, very nice, like customized rims and loudspeakers in it. It was a very nice Mustang. And so I'm stuck in jail now. I'm stuck in jail. And so when the addict is so selfish that he never cares about anyone else's problems enough to even call them or write them a letter and say, I'm sorry. You just start feeling, woe is me, woe is me. It's all me, me, me. And so I can remember reality actually truly finally hitting me when I was sobering up in Hayes County, like, I am going to prison. This is happening now. This is really happening now. And I mean, it really got to me. It got to me to the point where, I mean, there was days when I would feel these like demonic thoughts of, is life even worth living? You're not going to make it. How are you going to make it through prison? And so I would, I was going through a major internal battle with even being able to make it there. And so I can remember that my dad, being such a good father that he is, he never turned his back on me, no matter where I was at, no matter how crazy the charges and cases were. He never once turned his back on me. I have to say that. He always made sure there was a little bit of commissary money for a soup. It's very hard. For those who don't know, when you go to jail of any type, county, prison, or whatever, it is very hard to even just be able to be there without having more food than what they serve. They do not serve enough. You're hungry all the time. You go to sleep with your belly hurting. And so anyway, I call him one day and I kind of just break down like, man, I don't think I could do this, man. I just remember he charged me full of a positive spirit and said, son, listen, you don't even think like that. Don't talk like this. No matter what, you are dust and wood, and you're going to hold up our family name, and you're going to do just fine. I just remember that did help me. Hearing that gave me this, like, just gave me this fire to be like, yeah, you know what? He's right. No matter what, I'm going to be okay. And at this time is actually when I'm like, okay, I got to get back to right with God. I need to be reading into Bible and talking to God again, because it's been so many years and I've lost this relationship that I once kind of had. And I remember sitting in there waiting to go to prison, and I read that book, 23 Minutes in Hell, and I actually had a hellish encounter that night after reading that book. I saw in a dream or vision, if you want to call it. I think it was more of a dream. I saw a demon come running at me, screaming so loud that it made the skin on my spirit like fall off, and I just woke up like sweating. It's like I just, that stood out to me so much that happened in there. And so I'm in there for a few months, and actually kept trying to prolong my county sentence to not have to go to prison. So I had one of the judges laughing in Hayes County, because they would call my docket and say, okay, Mr. Wood, the only reason you're here with us is for this Class A misdemeanor, but we're ready to give you time served today because you need to move on down the road and get to Williamson County and get this prison sentence going. But see, I knew that all of this is counting as back time. And so I actually just wanted to keep prolonging it, not just to avoid prison, but they actually had good food at this jail I was at in Hayes County. They had good food. So when they would offer me this, I kept rejecting the offer and saying, nope, I'm not signing. And it blew their mind. Like, they had to reset the case 2 months in a row. And then the third month, she finally said, come here, I want to talk to you. And the judge asked me, like, what is going on with you? No one has ever done this before. I've never seen any person in my life turn down a time served offer. And I just tell her, like, judge, listen, your food's better and I don't want to go where they're sending me and this and that. So anyway, lo and behold, I sign, get ready that I'm about to go. So I get picked up by Williamson County. And once I get my case processed, what I'm looking at is a 15 to 17 month prison sentence. And so in Texas, you know that there is a difference in on what they would call a TDC side felony or a state jail felony. So state jail felony is kind of like the fourth degree felony. But the problem is that the state jails are actually crazier than normal prison, because there's no good time. You don't have any reason to act good because everyone has a date of when they'll get out. And so I went there and did my time. I had it was crazy to say the least. I mean, I definitely walked away from that situation for many years with a new level of PTSD. I saw some very, very, very traumatizing, dramatic things happen in there. One even to my cellmate, very, very bloody, gory, graphic things and crazy. There was also drugs in there. I was seeing, I myself would smoke weed here, a little bit here and there. They were very expensive. But I can remember that while I was there was a time that I was finally beginning to actually awaken again to wanting to get all the way right and to not just want to get out and do this all over again. I finally was seeing I got to break this cycle. I want to. And so I met some men in there that were trying to kind of mentor me and help me. And so I wrote a lot in there. I would write music day and night, and I had convinced myself that when I get out of here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to for real pursue music. I know I could do this. This is what I'm going to do. And so while I was locked up, I had actually made a very powerful connection with a person who was in touch with some higher level people in the Texas hip hop scene. And when I get out, he's like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to them and them. And so he does that. And then that becomes a whole new thing. So when I get out of prison, it's almost like this whole new inertia is happening. Now I feel like everything's going to be okay. And I do make a decision that no more opiates, no more hard stuff. I'm just going to smoke weed. And so I'm running toward music at a full pace. But I actually had nowhere to live or stay. Now, my family would have at any given time taken me back to the area I was born from and helped me out. But I'm telling you, there was something that would always pull me and make me stay in Austin and fight tooth and nail to live there. So I think my dad helped me out with like a couple of days in a hotel outside of prison. After that, I had to find a place. So I just get in my phone and would find people, talk them into letting me sleep, and I couch surf for a long time. So I start building up this idea in my head that this music is already working, and I haven't even recorded a song yet. But I am getting to run around with some big guys. I mean, some people that I used to look up to as a kid as like, and see as, who I consider to be some of the best in Texas. And I got to literally meet and sometimes be around my favorite artists. Some of that demonic favor came back on my life in this. People that I should not have been able to even meet that early or be around. It just all would happen and line up. And I would even do drugs with them and hang out with them. And so this actually goes on for many years, and I'm using on and off, mostly weed, but sometimes pills and a little bit of this here and there. And during this time, I do meet another girl, and I think that I like fall in love again. And she's helping me to build this idea that she believes I'm going to succeed in music also. And she has a daughter that's a year old. And so I kind of step into the role of fathering this child. In the beginning, neither one of us were like full blown addicts, but the addict gene was in us for sure. It just wasn't active, but it became active. And so I was, back to writing music all the time and eating Vicodin and just doing what I would do to keep myself going. She would do those with me. I can remember that there was a day when she finally told me, like, I don't like your drugs. I don't want to do them anymore. I actually want to do mine. And I'm like, well, what is yours? And she proceeds to tell me meth. And I'm like, I can't stand meth. I don't like it. I've done it. She's like, no, you've never done it the way I do it though, because I shoot it. And so the addict side of my brain does go, oh, she's right. I've shot a lot of stuff, but I haven't shot meth. So I don't. Then she begins to tell me there's a high level spirit of perversion and pornography that comes with the meth world. Is very, very dark and perverse. And she would fuel my head with these pornographic ideas of all these fantasy type things and this and that. And it was sick. It was sick and twisted. And I felt defiled at a new level, honestly, when I would do that stuff, because I mean, many times when we would do it, I would have very, very, very demonic encounters. Like I would see them, they would see me back, they would mock me. I would see them speak through her. I would see her offer herself to them, and they would have sex with her, even if I wasn't touching her. It got really crazy. And I would do that on the weekends and then try to recover for a few days and say, oh, never again. I would swear it off every other time. Never again, not with that. And I'm still also on the side running around with a lot of my buddies trying to do music. And there was a dear friend of mine who was kind of like a mentor to me. He was like a bigger brother and big into the music scene. And so I began like really trying to run with him. He saw potential in me. He believed that I would be able to do something. And he also would, front me little amounts of drugs to help him sell and stuff. And so this was one of the most painful things that happened to me in my entire life, because there was a night where I was staying alone at an apartment where it had been cleared out. No one else was supposed to live there anymore. Probably in the next 3 days, there will be new tenants. So I'm just kind of basically like squatting for a little bit since everyone else has moved out. And no one was meant that night to come over. But my buddy shows up, and this is actually like in 2013, whenever the powdered fentanyl is just ever first coming out. No one's even heard of it, but I knew what it was. Being an opiate addict, I knew what it was. I knew how dangerous it was too. and he has some, and he proceeds to show me, and he's been doing little bits of it, and I'm trying to tell him, like, you gotta be super careful, like, it's so dangerous. And so basically we end up having a long night of doing it, and another friend of mine who wasn't supposed to be there shows up. And so my mentor friend was like 34, my other friend, he was 45, he was a screenplay writer, and at the time I'm like 27, and all none of us should even been there that night, and we're all using. And what happens is we stay up really late. I try my best to stay there nursing them both and making sure we're all three good, but I probably around 4 in the morning, even I fall out. When I wake up the next day, I can just feel dread in my stomach, and when I look to my left, my friend that was 45, he's gone. I mean, he's so dead that the blood has already settled on the side that he's laying on. And so, I mean, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. There's something in me is trying to tell me to run away, but I know that's not smart. So I need to go find my other friend, and I run to the back room, and my other dear friend is laying there also ice cold, dead. And so I lose it. I lose it. This something in me again, another new thing fractures in me this day. I do stay and call the cops and make sure that everything is done right. And I can't, obviously the whole place becomes like a crime scene because they're confused that why did this even happen? Why is this one alive and these two are gone? And so my friend, he was, he was very well respected in the community and had an amazing family and fan base and all of these things. So people just began to dig deeper, and they just didn't believe what they were hearing. Fingers started getting pointed at me that I had somehow killed them, maybe that I had planned this. And I'm still out of my mind on other drugs, and now this has happened. And so there's this new trauma that's fueling me to make crazy dumb decisions. Well, the friend that was 45, he was in the process of trying to sell me his truck. And so, but he never told me that it wasn't even in his name, and it was still in his mother's name. And so I think my mind is just gone. Please know that my mind is gone at this point. And I think to myself, well, it's mine. It's my truck now. So I just start driving it. Well, the family eventually tries to get a hold of me, and I'm just so far gone at this point that I can't see myself giving it back to him or to the family. And I just keep driving it all the way to the point of me finding someone at the methadone clinic who would trade me truck for car. You take this, I'll take yours, and whatever. It is what it is. And that led to me getting an entirely new case, because what happens is the family reports it all. They start finally tracking it down, and once the guy I traded it to gets pulled over, he tells them all about me, and I get pulled over in his car, and now I have this new case of felony theft. Okay, so while I'm sitting on that, detectives actually show up and tell me that his mother is convinced that I killed him to get the truck. And so, and it's a mess. I mean, it's a mess. Even my own family is hearing parts of this and not knowing what to believe and what's right and what's wrong. It was a major mess. And but the truth is, none of that happened. It is not what happened. What happened was a bunch of young men were doing a bunch of drugs they shouldn't have been doing, and there was lives lost and terrible decisions afterward made. And so I end up actually getting ready to have to face that felony theft case. They said, we're going to do an autopsy and make sure. And so they do. And they see that I'm telling the truth. There's no, I guess they thought something that I had like injected him and just killed him to take his truck. But that was not the case ever. I love both of those guys so much. They were dear friends of mine. Rest in peace to both of them so much, man. This really truly fractured me this day. Everything was different after this day. I just remember like not really caring anymore. I was very happy to be alive still myself, but also not. It's weird to say that. It's like I was alive and glad I'm not gone. But on the other hand, my depression and PTSD and anxiety have amped up to this level where I start checking myself into mental health facilities because I feel like I have to be medicated. There's no way I can live this life anymore without having some type of medication. And so if I'm not going to do street drugs, then I need y'all to give me drugs. And so they do, of course, they pump me full of Seroquels and all these anti psychotics and things that they thought would help, and actually these things are making it worse, and these things are causing me at night to be taken to hellish realms and ripped apart over and over by demons. Now I understand this to be the portal of pharmakia. and studying and knowing these things. But at the time I knew none of that. And I just knew that if I didn't take that pill, I didn't sleep. And I had insomnia so bad that I could stay up for a month if I without any sleep and hallucinating and out of my mind. It would get really bad, really bad. And then I would fall into these periods of deep depression where all I wanted to do was double up on the meds and sleep, 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 and not even be awake at all. And so this goes on for a long time. Me and the girl I was with, we kind of go in and out. We would be good, we'd be off. We'd be good, we'd be off. And so I'm not at all being a good role model for this child, but I did love her dearly. And we did have many times that we would bond. And there would be times when I would get on my feet and start doing good and work a construction job and be all the way sober and be taking care of both of them. And so at one point, I actually had proposed to her, and I thought that this would work out and it would be this big, good thing. And I proposed to her on stage at a pretty high level artist show. I was able to get some of his stage time. So, but it wasn't maybe like 6, 7 months after I proposed that we finally dissolved for good. But I had been with her for a total of almost 7 years of this, like never really advancing in life, bouncing in and out of either being high or all the way depressed or codependent on her and she's codependent on me. And there's so much toxicity flowing back and forth through us. It was a really bad deal. And then on the other hand, every once in a while I get talked in again to doing the whole meth and perversion thing, and that was a whole deal. And there was probably at least twice that during our relationship that I left to go to a rehab, and I would go to a rehab. And I remember in one of the rehabs that I had a very prophetic experience. It was like probably like my 20th day or being there. And the only night she didn't answer the phone, I have this vivid vision of exactly what she's doing at home with what drugs and with what guys there and everything. And actually later find out that exactly what I saw happened. And so at that time, I didn't understand that the Lord was trying to show me some things that I just blew it off. I wasn't ready yet. I still wasn't ready. I actually went back and forgave her and see if we could work it out because she has a house or a place. And, we were staying sometimes in a Section 8 apartment in the ghetto part of Austin together, and we would try to make it work. It was like a duplex. And it was a very toxic cycle for both of us for many years, many years. And so I would try my best. So after there became a point in our relationship where it's like she just would openly go date people while I'm still living with her, to make me feel horrible and to show me that she does not care anymore at all, but she feels too bad to just put me on the street. And so she would go do it. And a lot of times they were like people I knew in the music industry or this or this or that or whatever. But, I couldn't blame her because I had nothing going for myself at all. And so actually at this point, I end up getting my mindset that what I need is to be connected to a methadone clinic, and that this somehow is going to prop me up and it'll balance my depression. And so I start going to the methadone clinic and on the regular every morning to go get things. And uh, I would, after people get methadone in the morning, like everyone stands on the block and it's like this congregational place where more drugs get traded. And so I actually meet some new people. And so one of them starts trusting me and I'm selling stuff for him. And so there is a morning when I'm at the methadone clinic that I catch the biggest felony charge I've ever caught in my life. It will also be the last case that I ever catch. But I'm down there helping sell his pills. I probably had like 200 of his Xanax and several other things. Like I was so out of my mind, I don't even remember exactly all the numbers of the volume that I had, but there were like 3 different types of benzos and some opiates and someone's methadone. And actually, so a cop sees me and claims that he watched me do a hand-to-hand transaction. And just by him asking me a few questions and stopping me, he's like, I'm going to check your name real quick. And if you don't have anything, then you can go. But I just happened to have an expired, it was like a Class C misdemeanor warrant for, I don't know if it was like a petty theft or an expired ticket that didn't get paid. It was something very, very low level and small, but it flagged him to search me. And then he finds all this stuff. So now I have a major, major case on my hands. And I'm like totally convinced this is the time that I'm about to do some for real prison time. And so that's actually what they tell me also when I end up going to court, is that yes, they're saying that it's going to be a minimum of 4 to 5 years, if not 10. And so I didn't know what else to do. I just began to my hardest to try to pray into this and figure out a way out of it. But man, I would just be up and down so much with the depression and the darkness that would settle upon me that sometimes it almost felt like I was getting what I deserved, and that whatever happens is just supposed to happen. And this is probably the point in my life when a lot of those thoughts of like what people may call now unaliving yourself comes in. Like that spirit began to rest upon me, and that spirit is one of the last ones that will descend upon you and start whispering things into you. And so I can remember that that was one of the first times I had an encounter with it, where it was implanting those thoughts into me, and I would try my best to fight them. Actually end up finding out on this case that because I have a history of mental illness, and they can actually trace it all within the Travis County system, and that I'm on medication and I have proof of all these things, that they get me switched to what's called the MHMR docket. So it's like a mental health, mental retardation court docket. And so they're able to expedite the case in a different manner. So now the 4 years of prison is off the table. And now I'm actually looking at getting 6 months in a lockdown rehab facility and 2 years of probation. And so I agree to this. I do it. I do amazingly well because I'm like, I'm convinced that this time I'm about to make it work. I'm going to make it for real work this time. I'm going to ride this out. I'm going to get back with God, with family, with everything. Um, and with music, right? All these things at once. So um, everything went good. I end up getting off the probation. I end up doing some stuff with some music and some people, but it just never really went anywhere. I ended up making a music video that I still to this day regret. I took it down on my end, but I can't tell the other person to take it down. This music video has a lot of imagery of death and looks like a mock like ritual style, like killing, like gang killing or something. I had no place doing this. I was not me. I didn't know that life. I had never even lived that life really, but I would always try to be a part of that somehow. And so I think that this day really marked me when I did that video, because I think that this day is truly when the spirit of death attached itself to me because of what we were doing in that music video. Looked as if we had one of my friends that was pretending to get hurt by us, you know? And so, but we write it off as like, oh, well, the song is called this, and it'll be a double entendre to make the video look like this. And so I just remember thinking it was this like artistic way of doing some street hip hop stuff. Like it was not good. It was not good, and I shouldn't have done it. But so I get to a place where I'm back in Austin. I cannot just seem to find a way to live above means. Like I'm always struggling at base level. And even when I get a job, like I can barely make it. Now I find this place called the South Austin Marketplace. And now it has actually changed its name now. And so I'll call it by its old name for intents and purposes. But this place was like, you could rent a room there for only like $600 and still be living in the city of Austin, and it had like community showers. And so it was actually a terrible facility and very dark. And there was a lot of illegal activity going on there, but they kind of have it under the guise of saying, well, this is a place of recovery and everyone here is actually sober, but no one's being drug tested. There's no accountability. It's actually a way that they're able to get funding, and they're able to write nonprofit stuff into it. And so there's a whole thing with that. But at this place, I end up getting back into stuff. And so throughout my whole life of drugs, I didn't speak on every single drug because there's so many, but there's been times when I would also go through little periods of crack smoking. And I mean, I don't know why, because I honestly really didn't like it that much, but it was, if it would just blitz my mind out so much that there were times when I would do it, I would hide and do it alone. I was very ashamed of it. I didn't want no one else knowing about that one. And so I start doing that again at this place. And while I'm there, they end up trying to like work for them here and there. And then COVID happens and it's like a whole thing, and just basically barely getting by in life. And every day I'm just feeling more and more less like I even want to live. I can't see nothing ever coming out of this music stuff. I'm literally barely hanging on by a thread. I wanted to go back to rehab again, but then I didn't at the same time. It's like, it almost felt like everywhere I turned, it's like, I've already tried that. I've already tried that. I've already tried that. None of it worked. And here I am still again. And so I was at this place for I think the first time I was there for like 6, 7 months. And then I end up leaving. I actually come back up around my family for a little while. But while I'm up here in the panhandle around my family, lo and behold, I swear the devil always finds someone. I was trying to stay sober. Someone literally comes up to me in the town I'm at, in this little bitty town, and says, "Hey, do you know anything about this drug and that drug?" And they're exactly the things that I know about. And so he happened to have benzos and meth. And so I go on this whole new run while I'm supposed to be in town getting back on my feet and working, and I'm actually living in house with family. And so this is a whole nother major problem, and they can see what's going on. And so I know that I can't stay and do them like this. I need to leave again. And so once again, I have to leave, and I'm still technically on that probation from that last case. They allowed me to move. I got it approved to move up to the panhandle. I told them it'd be good for me. And then now I have to call them and say I'm coming back because something went wrong. And so I was actually really close to finishing the probation. So when I end up coming back to Austin and I finish that probation, I get that case over with and done. And I have not had another case since that one. But sometimes it was better for me to have cases because I wouldn't fall into these like horrible times of going into the darkest holes of using, because times when I don't have legalities in my life, legal consequences, and I would just, I mean, I would go really, really, really hard. And so I get to a place where once again I have nowhere to live. I don't know what to do. How am I even going to afford to live in Austin? And honestly, why am I even in Austin? But that principality or whatever had a hold of me down there would not let me leave. And I didn't know also as a Christian that you could even have things oppressing you. But so anyway, I remember this is when it gets to the probably the worst I've ever been in my life. I'm living back at the South Austin Marketplace. They give me a job working for them as night security. So I would have to watch their cameras all night. And I'm watching the cameras and I'm having to keep out like the homeless community from coming in there. But everyone comes there to score drugs and do stuff, and prostitutes, and like this place is like the lowest of the low. And this is where some of the darkest criminals are hiding out and some of the worst spots, you know. So while I'm there, I end up going deep, deep, deep into the darkest hole I've ever been in my life. I could not see a way out. That same spirit of unaliving yourself was in my ear every day. Now I'm doing every drug I can find. I'm smoking tons of crack, tons. Like I had this person that was just giving it to me regularly all the time for free. I'm doing opiates. I'm doing lots of benzos. And this is at the time when the fentanyl comes into my life. So now I'm actually snorting and smoking fentanyl. And I had several times where friends of mine would almost die and turn all the way blue-lipped, and I would have to bring them back. There was times when I was alone myself and I got like that. I was doing too much. Like that stuff is so dangerous. But it also, see, when you're an addict, like in the middle of an addiction, it almost seemed like this is perfect because I can buy a little amount and get wasted. So this is what made me pull the smoking crack and do a coke again into it, because I needed something to help me stay up. And so I'm at a point where I'm getting fronts, and I don't have a vehicle. I have not had a vehicle at this point in Austin. I haven't had a vehicle in almost like over 10 years. And I've been using public transportation or Uber or just getting however, like that stuff had all left my mind. None of it seemed important. The only things that seemed important to me were like getting from point A to point B to make sure that the last thing of the point C was there to put in me. So it was just always this selfish fuel of, well, I don't care what all else is happening, but I got to get to that place to do that drug, to feel different about these thoughts. And tomorrow I'll figure out the rest. But it would just repeat itself over and over and over and over. And it was really, really taking a toll on me. This place, I went through some really demonic experiences there. I was being like, at night, I began to see and hear demons mock me. I would see them. I would try to convince myself that what I'm seeing is not real. Then I would even hear voices telling me that I should watch like certain movies. And so I had always kind of liked like horror movies and stuff. But at this point in my life, like I started becoming entrenched in like the whole Conjuring universe and how those are all real. And I would always have this voice that was trying to tell me that this is smart, and that what I'm doing is equipping me as a Christian, and that I'm actually learning the inner workings of the demonic world to one day fight it. And so this was a lie from the pit of hell. I was in no shape to fight any demons. I was not. What was happening was I was being indoctrinated by spirits of witchcraft, by spirits of the occult that were pulling me in to try to take me into deeper defilement, because drugs are a form of sorcery. Pharmakia is a form of sorcery, and it opens portals. And this is why people see things, because when you have a person say they see something, it doesn't necessarily mean the drugs made them see it. The drugs opened the portal. It wasn't that they're seeing something fake. What they see is actually there, but your eyes can't see it because they opened that portal. And so this was happening to me like almost nightly. And some nights it's even kind of exciting in this weird way, because like, I mean, these things have this weird way of convincing you and telling you hidden information, and that you're going to know things no one else will know. I can just remember them trying to get me to go down these deep, dark holes of stuff I'd never heard. I began to dig deep into Wendigos, and I would watch all of these. I would sometimes fall asleep at night with these true story tales of people who have highly supernatural encounters when they're out camping in the woods. And it would give me this weird peace, and I could sleep hearing these terrifying dark stories. So I'm coming into deeper and deeper levels of defilement. And also something that had always kind of been a part of my life as a young man was just to keep it PG. I know they call it corn now. We know like corn addiction, like the perversion, spirits of perversion would come on me. I would satisfy myself, or whatever you want to say. But I can remember like being convinced and told that this was important for me to do, and that these things wanted to make sure that that happened. And so it was almost like a tithe to a demonic altar. Like, and so also in this room that I've been living in all these months, almost for 2 years, this place is already so dark and so bad, and I'm in such a bad place and bad condition, that I begin to get convinced that there's no point in me even going all the way to the community restroom at night. I can just urinate in a jug and put it under the bed. I mean, I didn't even really realize until leaving the place that I mean, the whole entire underneath my bed had just old jugs of urine. And it pains me to speak on this, but I feel like the Lord wants me to be 1000% transparent of how dark and nasty it got for me, because this is not how I was raised, and I know better than all these things. But this is more than just being like drugged up and doing something gross. This is demonic. This was, my whole room had become its own altar, and it was fueling these spirits. And so this place I lived at was also very much so an altar that is just so much activity. I mean, in the time I was there in 2 years, I saw at least 10 people die. No one bat an eye. It was a normal thing, like, oh, so and so died last night, so and so died over here. And like, so people were actually passing in this place, and it was just kind of being accepted as normal. Oh, well, yeah, he did drugs. It just happens. No, it should not just happen, no matter if you do drugs or not. And so it gets to a point where I'm doing so bad on the security, doing the fentanyl, doing also benzos, doing also crack, that I'm losing my mind, and I can't focus. And when I am at the security job, I'm falling out, nodding off all over the place. They had given me several warnings. So many times they had tried. But also, I will say this, that also there were people in the upper staff there that were supposed Christians and people of God who knew what I was doing and did not intervene, would even sometimes make jokes over my head about it. And kind of, I remember one night, one of the ladies that worked there, she's like, I was just asking her how her night was. She's like, oh yeah, well, I think tonight I'm going to go talk to blah, blah, blah and get me some crack. And she literally said the exact name of the dealer I was getting it from. So I knew it was her way of joking at me that like, yeah, we watch you on the cameras. We know what you're actually doing. And because honestly, I mean, there was a side of me that was crying out for help. I wanted help. I just didn't think I could even make it work anymore. I did not see value in AA and NA and rehab. I mean, there's like a 5% chance of it working long term. And so it just felt like I felt hopeless. I'd finally gotten to a place, and I'm a very resilient person. As many times as I bounced back from going to prison, from going to here, from going to felony to felony, I kept always bouncing back. But this time I just reached a place where it just felt like this is it. It's done. I didn't have it in me to reach out to family. I did not have it in me to even really cry out to anyone. Even the close friends who were using with me, I wouldn't tell them this. They might share these type of thoughts with me, but I would not tell them mine. So I don't know. I think that I was eventually going to, there was a side of me that just thought, hey, we're going to do what we got to do one day, and it might just have to end. So I don't know. That spirit was on me, and it was talking heavy in my ear day and night. So it finally gets to a point where they fire me. And this is the point that we're building to. And so this was 6/6 of 2024 in in gematria, if you know, in number, add the 2 and the 4. And so what I say is, I'll be honest with you, like 2 months prior, I've been seeing that number everywhere. Like I can't get away from it. It's plaguing me day and night. Even every time I pick my phone up at 66%, it's like everywhere I looked, is all I would see was those demonic numbers. And it was really taking a toll on me because I'm also hearing and seeing them. And it's weighing on me. I can feel my spirit like almost being tugged at and pulled. And there's so, at night, if I ever do fall asleep at night, the warfare I'm going through is so intense that I would usually wake straight up in the middle of the night out of I would wake up out of these sweaty visions of seeing these major demons and stuff, and just start smoking fentanyl to try to forget what I just saw and somehow pass back out again. And it would happen all over again. And so this particular night, I tried to set my mind to be sober. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to end up dying, and I'm going to try. So I stopped. And so with this experience you're about to hear, for 3 entire days, I have not eaten, I have not drinking water, and I have not done any single drugs at all. But I am smoking cigarettes like a freight train, and I'm very sick, very, very sick. That fentanyl sick is the worst opiate sick I had ever felt in my life. Plus, I'm also crab sick now. So I'm coming off all these things at once, but I'm trying my hardest to just ride it out and just lay in bed and watch movies. Now, I get to a point where I'm like starting to see and hear these demons tell me, like, today's the day. Today's the day you're going to hell, and we got every single legal right. Well, you're going. The paperwork's done. I mean, it's not just one voice. It's literally like hundreds of layered voices, all mocking, laughing, telling me the same things over and over and over. And then what I experienced was something very crazy, because the same people that I normally use with and do illegal stuff with are now all of a sudden super mad at me and very, very, very worked up. And they're coming by my room and dropping death threats. And I mean, when you withdraw, you're in such a like vulnerable place that you don't feel like confident enough to fight or to deal with anyone that's at that capacity. So I'm literally just in my room, just kind of rocking, and like, I remember my mind is like, is this even real? But it was, because I am sober. This is not a drug fueled hallucination. This is all actually really happening. And so I can just remember that I had finally come to a place where I was fed up with all of it. And I cried. I was crying my eyes out, crying my eyes out. And I just remember like yelling out to God. And before I did, I broke a lot of strongholds. And what a stronghold is when you believe a demonic lie, a stronghold is formed in your mind. And because I had one about, I have to live in Austin. I had one about, I have to do hip hop music. I had one about, I'm meant to be here. I had all these different ones. And I just remembered like literally feeling them begin to shatter when I came out of agreement with these things. I even had one that was like, you don't deserve to be around family. I blew all these out, and I just cried out to Jesus, like, you gotta help me. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it past this day. I am hearing and seeing these demonic things tell me it is done. You are through. You are over with. And a lot of my 20s and 30s, I had been wearing gold teeth. I had several different gold grills. I had even had permanents at one time, but they had ruined my teeth because I'm wearing grills and never taking it out, eating food with the grill in, doing drugs with the grill in, smoking cigarettes with the grill in. So my mouth is ruined. And I mean, I couldn't even recognize myself in the mirror really. And as I'm crying out, I'm just yelling out to the Lord, like, I remember hearing the Holy Spirit's voice telling me, you need to take these gold teeth out, put it down, and do exactly what I tell you. Don't take a single thing from this place. You need to go to the front right now and tell them that you've worked here before. He begins to coach me and tell me, and I had never really actually heard the Holy Spirit's voice or even knew that you could talk to him. And he would show me a vision and remind me that I used to work in the front office. I knew when people had mental health breakdowns that you could call mental health doctors and they will come out to you. And so I have no idea, no plan what's going to happen, but all I know is I got to do something. And so I go and try to pour all this out to who used to be a coworker of mine, the guy who's at the front desk. And when he calls these mental health officials, it's so late at night, it's like 10 or 11 at night, that it's too late. And what happens is cops come. Okay. Now, when the cops come, this place I was at was just so dark and so fueled by sin that it was under one of those guises of like, oh, if you if you do anything wrong, you're a snitch, or there's no real accountability among thieves, right? And so I just remember like going out there and these cops are asking me what's going on, and I said way too much at one time, but it almost felt like something helped me be confident and just or have the nerve to say what needed to be said. Like, hey man, listen, I've been living here all this time. There's a whole underground drug network going on here. Now, I did not name names and I didn't start, dropping to get people in trouble, but all of this I remember just kind of throwing up all this information to this cop, and his eyes get really big, and he's like, well, but what's going on with you, Dustin? I'm telling him, like, sir, I'm not going to make it through this night. I'm telling you right now. I'm trying to tell him that I'm seeing and hearing demons tell me that it is my day to go to hell, and that they're going to get me, and that all these ex-friends of mine are dropping death threats and already ready to do it. And they're looking at me more like, oh, he's just coming off something and paranoid. That's what this looks like. And so I have to kind of swing the narrative now to being like, you know what, man, and that spirit was on me, as I'm just like, if y'all aren't going to help me, then I'll have to do something to myself. And so now at this point, I'm trying to tell him, like, if you don't help me, then I know I'll hurt myself, because I'm saying whatever has to be said to get help and get away from this place and these wretched people and this wretched life that I've built for myself, and all this filth that I live in, and all these months of not showering, and all these months of just drug, getting a paycheck, spending it all, literally just walking from that place to this corner store and cashing the check, coming back and it being gone in less than an hour, all to one dealer, and being, by the time I'm done with the drugs, I'm out and broke again and have to go get fronts. And this had been going on for almost a whole 2 years. And mind you, my family and me are so distant at this point that they're not really checking on me like that. All they know is like, man, we kind of lost Dustin several years ago. We don't know what's really going on with him because he never tells the truth. I had such a lying spirit. A wretched liar, one of the worst liars on the face of earth, I promise you, and one of the best at the time, because I could convince myself of stuff that was not true. But this day was full of honesty, and I was crying out from the bottom of my heart to the Lord. And before, it wasn't like a magical light that swooped in just yet, because what happened was, so I tell the cops all this. Now they say, okay, Dustin, well, we need to go back in here to the office and at least tell them. So now actually it clicks in my mind, like, they're going to go in, they're going to tell my coworker all of this stuff I just said. And I know he's going to do exactly what I would have done. He's going to go tell all the guys in there, like, yeah, Dustin's out there just singing away. He just said this, he said that. And that's what happened. They take me to South Austin Hospital. And when I get to South Austin Hospital, I remember I'm sitting in there and I'm just losing it, man. I'm coming out of my skin. I'm in such bad withdrawal. But more than that, I'm more worried about what I am still seeing and hearing in the spirit. Because I had never had this deep of an experience before of hearing this clearly and stuff in the spirit. And so I'm trying to tell these doctors this, and they're just like, sir, it's no, there's no one's coming after, no one's coming to get you. No, that's not going to happen. We're going to take care of you. We're going to get social workers here to help you and all this and that. Well, about an hour later, they had me tucked away in a room. I start hearing all these guys are outside of the hospital with baseball bats and all type of stuff, banging on the trash cans, screaming curse words, screaming my name, telling me to come outside. And so this point, the doctors are like, he's telling the truth. And so I actually hear several times, I hear the doctors talk to them and say like, he's not here. That person's not here. And they're pushing past the doctors to find me, because the thing is, like, may not even realized like how much the demon had jumped on them. And there was a spiritual bounty on my head. There was money on my head. And so I just remember hearing this for hours, and the poor people in the hospital, like guys who are actually hurt, are waking up going, doctor, what is going on out there? What is happening? I mean, the cops in Austin barely come around for stuff like this. So they call them, but they don't come. And so they were out there for a long time trying to wait for me. So, I'm sitting it out. The next day I talked to the social worker. The social worker is like, okay, I think we have a place where you can go since we don't know if you have insurance or not. I tell him, listen, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to rehab. I'll go here. I'll go there. I have to get right. Like, I could finally feel my spirit burning to do whatever it took to get right. And so he says, well, this place you're going to go to is more like a mental health type facility, and it's kind of like locked down, but at least you can detox there, but they don't really do like detox meds. So you'll just have to keep riding it out. Since you've already made it 3 days, you should be okay. And so the next morning, the wildest thing, because I'm not in any type of legal trouble, but I get taken outside and there's two DPS officers and they say, put your hands in front of you. And I'm like, excuse me? They said, put your hands in front of you. I said, well, am I being detained or cuffed? They said, no, this is just for your safety. And they cuffed me in the front. And as they put me, they said they're my transports. They're taking me to this new place. And as they're swinging, I mean, they will not stop at a single light. They're flying in and off the freeway. And it's almost kind of freaking me out, because this whole thing is becoming like a blurry, scary experience. Like, I don't understand it. None of it made like actual sense to me how it was playing out. And I hear the cops say, oh, is this him? This Dustin Wood? Oh, yeah. We heard his name on the gang scanners all night. I don't know what he did, but whatever he did, this whole city wants him. Which, let me say this, none of this made any sense. I did not owe money. I did not drop names. I did not. And not to say that the Lord wouldn't have wanted me to. If he wanted me to, I would have. But I'm trying to paint a picture that there was no actual reason for these people to want to hurt me or come after me in the way that they were coming after me, So the worst thing that happened was this place that we lived at, that's supposed to be a recovery place, got told on that drugs are done and sold there. Big deal. Everyone knows that. The whole city of Austin knows that you can buy and do drugs there. So it just, honestly, it made no sense. But I can tell that the cops, they understand how dangerous the situation is. And so I'm just trying to listen to them. And the whole way, we don't stop. They are swinging. It's almost like they seem like scared to stop at stoplights, which is freaking me out, because I feel like, well, once I get out of here, how am I going to be safe? I just keep telling the Lord, like, I'm in such bad shape. I'm in your hands. I can't even hardly walk right now. I can't eat. I'm shaking and jittering, involuntary muscle spasms. My face doesn't feel right. Most of my teeth are gone because I pulled out my gold grill, left it, and I look absolutely crazy. And I get to this mental health facility place. They begin pumping me full of different types of medicine, like antipsychotics and all this. But what's crazy is, like, no matter what they gave me, it did not change anything. I didn't feel it. It didn't do nothing. And if anything, it just helped amplify the demonic voices I was already hearing even more. And I began to hear these voices in detail telling me, like, you might have made it out, but you will not make it this next day. Like, they kept letting me know, like, this is not over, and we are going to get you. It is a done deal. So there's nothing you can do to get out of this, you know? And I remember that while I was at this place, I was there for like 5 days. And this is how crazy it gets, that there was a person in there I've never met in my life before, another mental health patient, right? And one morning while we're coming back from breakfast, I can't eat. So everyone's mad at me because I hold up the line because I'm shaking and throwing up and super sick. And this guy, I mean, it's like the demon jumped inside of him because he just starts charging me, screaming, I'm going to kill this MFer. And he's got like a pencil or something sharp in his hand charging at me. Luckily, they tackle him to the ground. And this became like a thing in there. Like, I would see spirits jump in, other clients there that would start barking threats at me or throwing up gang signs at me and all type of like crazy stuff. And then when I would lay down, I couldn't sleep. I'd be pulled out of my body. I would be violently ripped out of my body and taken to realms that I could not distinguish reality from. I mean, there's an amazing man named Nathaniel Gillis, and he has an episode on the Confessionals where he talks about the phenomenon and how they relate to the demonic somehow. And I'm telling you, I had an experience where like I would be laying at night and it's almost like when I would close my physical eyes, that my spirit eyes would open a little bit. They would like peek open and I could see three of these little entities around me that look like grays, but they were like, it looked like they were like doing surgery on me or something. They would put their fingers down inside my body and inside my brain. And I would just be peeking, watching all this. But I mean, every time that they would do it, I would transport it into these weird realms. And sometimes they were very fantasy like, like they would be ideally exactly what I would want if I could be like, if you could, let's say you could mix some of your favorite shows together. So like they would mix some of my favorite hip hop artists with episodes of South Park with this other episodes of another movie and pull it all in and have me thinking that I'm the star of this movie in this realm. And I know that Mr. Gillis talks about this, how they call it the phenomenon can project things into the mind. And so what I feel like they were trying to lead me down these paths to either be fully initiated into them or come into some type of agreement or covenant. But somehow I would always come out of it. I mean, there was even several times they were trying to convince me things about being like, I know this might sound crazy to some people, but this is just honestly what I experienced. It would show me these visions of like Star Wars type visions and how like you're like, I was like the top Jedi Knight, but I have fallen, and so I need to choose my next heirs. I have to pick someone because I'm done. I've fallen, and so they were wanting me to accept death and to say, "Oh, yep, you're right. Give the torch to this person, and I'll just leave and go." And so they kept trying to. It was several different visions like that where they wanted me to say out loud that I knew I was done with and that I knew I was over and that I knew that my life had ended. They wanted me to say that and speak it over myself, but I wouldn't. And a lot of times I would finally end up kind of waking up and being like, what is going on? Where were those little people? And then I would zone back out and my spirit eyes would peek open again. I would see them again, standing around me with their fingers in me, sparking new weird visions. And this went on for days. It was exhausting. And so finally it comes to a point where I've seen the counselors in there now. I've been there like 5 days. So I'm going on like 9 days of cold turkey, super sick, have not eaten a single thing. I can't keep water down. I can't keep anything down. So what I like to call it was an unconsecrated fast. And I had never been taught about fasting, but now I know the benefits. But in a fast, you get hype, your spirit gets hyper accelerated and you're plunged into the spirit realm in a bright way. And that's what makes so much sense to me about this, was that I was very active in the spirit realm, probably because of that. Like there was no kind of food in me or substances or nothing. And they had, like I said, like they kept making me take these antipsychotics and stuff, but I don't know if there was some kind of way that the demonic was keeping them from hitting me, because I never felt any of those meds that they gave me do anything different. So it finally gets to a point where they're like, sir, we don't know if you have insurance. You cannot just keep staying here. This is a temporary place. And so they're trying to convince me the next place I need to go is to the Salvation Army. Okay. but you're gonna have to work. Can you work? And in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, I've been a hard worker my whole life, but I'm not in this type of condition. So they basically just need something for their paperwork. So they're just gonna take me to Salvation Army. Well, little do I know, when they take me to Salvation Army and put me there, it is right around the corner from the old place I used to live, and half of the people that I used to have to be a security guard to kick out of the other place, South Austin Marketplace, are living here at this place, and they all knew about what was going on. It was like, as soon as I got there, it was just as hectic as it was at the other places. I was getting threatened left and right. They would try to make me work. I would try to go work for like a few hours on their dock, pass all the way out, wake up in a hospital. This happened to me 6 days in a row, that this place that's supposed to help you and be of Christ was not helping me. And they were forcing me into physical labor that was almost killing me. And I mean, I was barely getting by. People would walk by me at lunch and be like, yeah, you ain't gonna make it. As soon as, it was nonstop threats, nonstop threats, nonstop threats. And I would try to keep my blinders on and just be trudging through each day, hoping to get better, feel better in some way. Finally gets to a point where they say the same thing. You can't stay here either. We don't have the capacity to take care of you, and you're not able to work. So you're gonna have to go from here too. And so at this point, this is when I get really frustrated, because they supposedly called mental health officials again to reassess me, and it starts all over again. I get taken back to the South Austin Hospital to get reassessed, to actually this time around get told by the next social worker that she thinks I'm lying and that none of this is true and it's all in my head, and that I need to call a friend because they're discharging me. And so I get thrown into the streets now. Like, now I'm thrown into the streets. It's pouring rain in Austin. I don't know what to do. None of my supposed friends are answering their phone. If they do answer a text, they don't want nothing to do with what I'm telling them. They don't, no one is there to help me. I got so lucky. One friend did eventually answer. First, I had to go to a friend's in West Campus area. And this young man, turns out, he doesn't tell me when I get to his house, he's got a bunch of madness going on, and there are gang members after him. And now it's a whole night of this. It goes deeper and deeper. And I finally just freaked out. I called the only friend that I knew I could trust with my life and begged him from the bottom of my heart, bro, man, listen, I don't want to do music. I don't want to live in Austin. I just want to be with family. I just want Jesus. And he could hear it. And he was like, Dustin, calm down. I've never heard you talk like this ever, ever. So I believe you. And I believe you're serious. I'm going to send an Uber to you right now.